Hey everyone, February 1st, first day of the fiscal year. I'm very excited to see you all. This is the digital experience group conversation. This is kind of like a two-pack. It's like when your favorite band puts out a double album because we skipped our last one because it was right after the day we went public. So there's a lot of stuff in the deck. Hopefully you found some time to look through it, have a video as well that we really dive deep into our plan for the information architecture changes. But thanks for coming. Alex, I see you've got the first question here.
Yes, thank you, Michael. In your recording, you had mentioned how we should be thinking about our marketing site as an e-commerce platform that is driving self-service and no-touch sales unless it passes a certain threshold. Could you elaborate on this vision for me?
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit because obviously it's going to require a lot of cross-functional partnership to figure out what those thresholds are. But I'm of the opinion systems need to be opinionated, and I'm full of them, whether that's a good thing or not, but a lot of them based in data. And the way I see it is we shouldn't typically have people doing what computers can do, and we should have people doing things that computers shouldn't do. And I could envision a future where maybe it's some kind of ratio of total addressable market and deal size. Like there's maybe 30 to 20% of engagements that pass that criteria that actually do require a person. It's a complicated sale, need someone to help them through that. Then anything below that, in the SMB segment or maybe some mid-market, I'm pretty sure we should be able to make an e-commerce experience that can handle that in a more automated way. So very excited to have you, Alex, the self-service team, Chasm and Ali, to collaborate with, and anyone else who's interested, getting these conversations going sooner than later. I would love that.
Thanks.
Thank you. And not on the call. I can verbalize for us. So Anne's asking if we've done any user research that's informed the information architecture refresh, or are we planning on validating it as we move forward? Anne's asking as they're planning user research around GitLab's information architecture and navigation to understand users' mental models better. Well, it's not exactly the same topic, and user groups are different. Buyers may or may not be GitLab users. I'm wondering if there is any overlap would be beneficial for both of us around the solutions and features neighborhoods. First off, love the question, Anne. Thanks. I love when cross-functional partners from different parts of the organization check in. I see a lot of opportunity for us to get tighter at this cross-functional collaboration, so thank you. The user research we did last year when we changed the navigation was really insightful, and we've taken some of that on board. It wasn't specific for information architecture. It was more, where do people, like you say, mental model, where do people think these links would live in the navigation? That's given us enough to have confidence in moving forward. My opinion on things like we're doing now is, like, I'm a design thinker to my core, but there's a right time to do that. And then there's a time when we can use our collective intelligence and experience to just come up with something that we know is better. So kind of elevate the baseline and then start doing research and optimization off of it. So that's the approach we're taking here is, I've worked here for 2 years now, done what I've been doing for over a couple of decades. So I'm kind of using a lot of that experience as well as the experience of my team and putting something forward we know is fundamentally better and has more opportunity within it. And then in the future, we'll plan to do optimization based off of the data we collected and user research. But any opportunity to collaborate, I see a lot of good opportunity there to find that through line of insights. Next, we've got Zach, who's also not on the call. So Zach's asking, are tests running on major conversion pages like trial, pricing, etc.? And are the tests documented so cross-functional teams can align messaging for what's working best? Lauren, I'll just jump in with the high level, and then you can jump in with your answer. There's one test running right now on the free trial link that the growth team has been leading. So what that looks like now is you click free trial, it goes right into the sign up flow, and we're seeing a lot of positive results from that. We have historically done some testing on the pricing page, had some really great results when we implemented a communication change that Sid recommended, which was speaking more about the customer benefit rather than listing all the features and why we think they're great. And in that learning, it was great to quantify, but that was kind of one of those scenarios where everyone in the room knew it was better. So the data we got from the test to just validate we knew it was better, it's not something we're going to take forward with us and like build on. So that was kind of a learning that's informed our decision making on what we're going to do with the information architecture, is knowing when to test, when it's going to build, and when, it's something we could almost do regression testing on pretty easily by reverting. I know the growth team has a handbook page of all the tests they're running. We haven't gotten into a good consistent flow of consistent testing yet. We don't have a UX research team on marketing. I do have some budget for a UX researcher for 2 quarters, which I think will be Q2 and Q3. That'll be the most optimal time for us to implement them. So we're aiming towards getting to something a bit more consistent, but as of now, the answer is kind of not really. Lauren, did you want to speak to your points there?
Sure. I just dropped a couple of links for reusing LaunchDarkly on the www repository. We have not yet integrated it into the buyer experience repository, but we will shortly. We've just started migrating some of these major conversion pages like this week. So tooling will come shortly, and all the data is in LaunchDarkly if you want to go take a peek. So
thanks. I don't see any more questions. I might just elaborate a little bit on something Lauren just said, buyer experience.
Hey, Michael.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What is the gap with our own A/B testing? What are we missing there that we opted for LaunchDarkly?
I'd have to relook at that based on the period of time that's now passed since we were using LaunchDarkly. LaunchDarkly was in place right when I started. I think the previous leadership had made that selection and put it in place. I'm familiar with LaunchDarkly. I used it in my previous role, so it was pretty seamless to get in and start using it. I had a discussion with Orit early, and she said there was a couple things around feature flagging that weren't exactly where LaunchDarkly was, but that was a year and a half ago. So it's a good point, Sid. I should check back in with Orit and get up to speed on what progress they've made.
Yeah,
help answer the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that there's still stuff missing, so I'm not pushing for it today, but love to know the gap and then see how we can close that gap in product or maybe even incubation engineering.
Yeah, the big one from my perspective, Michael, which you'll probably experienced maybe, is the analysis of it. So you collect your events and then you want to do statistical significance. What is the lift? What's the p-value? And get those results quickly, and likely do so with someone that doesn't have strong SQL skills. And that's been the biggest challenge, at least on the product side, for our experimentation system. So I think we're a pretty decent way to turn on tests to measure them, or to launch them.
Alan, your mic's open.
But it's the analysis that is the big gap from my perspective. So happy to sync with you on that, Michael. We can talk more.
Yeah, that's clear. I do love in LaunchDarkly, even Google Optimize, which we have access to, just the automatic communication. We have to trust it, obviously, but about statistical significance and the p-value saves us a lot of time. And John, before we get to your point, I just wanted to have a small elaboration on what Lauren said about buyer experience repository. It's been something we've been working on for a couple quarters. It's documented in both in epics and in the presentation, but it takes forever to push something live to the marketing site, like 40 minutes. Like I find a typo on the homepage and want to change it, that's 40 minutes to get it through the pipeline. That's just painful, especially for my team when they're making, thousands of changes a week. And part of that is just the size of the repo. All our images are in there. It's nothing wrong with Git or GitLab. It's just the reality of the technical infrastructure. So we called it the buyer experience, which is kind of what you see in the information architecture, all the colored Post-its. This is what a potential buyer is going to be going through. So we're moving pages out of there and moving it to a new stack. So the current www repo is like Middleman, primarily run on Middleman. That's the static site generator. And we're moving it over to Nuxt. And Nuxt is great because it's JavaScript based. So a lot more of my engineering team is more JavaScript focused than Rails or Ruby. And because it's smaller, it builds almost instantly and just really improves our efficiency. So that's what that means. That's something that's in process. And we're going to see over this year just the benefits, especially now that we're going to roll out the brand. It's just everything's going to start happening a lot faster. So if you hear those terms, just that's what that is. John, would you want to talk?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I'm just curious, what is like the data that we use to decide which pages get updated? Partially I ask because I'm just curious, like, is it conversion rates, traffic, some kind of combination of the two? But also we have a goal of 1,000 monthly contributors. And I think an update for our community pages could help. Like, I think there's room to improve those pages. So I'm just curious, like whether there's an opportunity to get those pages prioritized at some point.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I love everything you do, John. So I'm a big proponent of trying to find a way to get that work prioritized. So just so you know, I'm always thinking about the community work.
Thank you.
Currently, we're really excited. This morning, like hot off the press, we just had the final piece of code go live in production on the SaaS checkout page. Kudos to Tyler Williams on our team. Just unbelievable. It's been 3 months of hard, challenging work. So as of this morning, we can now say, okay, we don't know who this person is, but we know that there's been some people that have come to the marketing site from LinkedIn, from this ad, and they went through these pages, they signed up for a trial, they took the trial. We don't know what they did in the middle of the trial because that's product stuff, but then we can say that person did or did not convert into a customer. So it's like just amazing. So that's today. I had to make decisions a couple of weeks ago on the pages. So we will use that information going forward. But what I had at my disposal that I felt was solid data was sessions, users, page views, time on page, and pages per session. And that's where it got into a little bit of an art and a science. Like the easy part is just saying, okay, people that set pages that have a lot of sessions or a lot of users, like those are no brainer. You look at the list too, and it's like homepage, pricing page, trial page, install page, jobs. Those are ones that we're going to prioritize. And then I'm not exactly sure how it's set up, but a previous SEO person set up something that if someone clicked a CTA on a page, it would kind of artificially increment what in Google Analytics is called page value. We've taken that over. Now it's actually going to show like what a purchase is, but it kind of signaled something along the lines of intent on the page or someone wanting to do something on a page. So from there, what I did is I ran a quick little query that was basically over a 3-month span, pages with more than 5,000 hits. So it's not any like weird outliers. And then I sorted it by how many, sorted it by that value. So kind of communicating to me, let's grab some of these pages that might not have a ton of traffic, but when people get there, they really are signaling some intent. So it's kind of like a combination of the best signal that I had, not perfect. And then kind of on top of that, just thinking what's best practice, what's common, what are competitor sites doing, kind of a little bit of thinking. Like I come from an e-commerce background. So in e-commerce, when we're making our experiences, we think of we drop the E and think of regular commerce. Like most stores you walk into have a door. That's great because we all know how to get into the store. We're not making people think, how do you even get into our store? A lot of them have the checkout in the same spot. So not making people relearn how to use our marketing site and just making it easy for them to have an experience. So that's a little bit of the art and the science behind it all.
Cool. Thanks for that.
No problem. Bronwyn.
Hi. So I wanted to ask in terms of the action plan for this fiscal year. There was a great description about some of the efforts. I think it's going to be Q2 on sort of personalizing that potential customer journey. And I was curious to know if you have thought of any potential challenges that we may face as we put that into action, given some of the new data privacy laws and not knowing the final regs that may exist for those. But are there any challenges to that personalization that you've anticipated so far?
Great question. And you're right. What moving goalposts? Just maybe not even move. We don't even know the goalposts. It's like the net's over there somewhere and we'll tell you what it looks like in a year. It's hard to solve for that. Putting things in place. I believe what makes sense for us is I just championed and so happy about all the Google Analytics progress we made, which is great. Parallel to that, I think it's imperative for us to start putting in place some kind of signal collection mechanism. I know it's a bit vague, but something that is collecting group activity that we're collecting not as a third party, but as ourselves as soon as possible. Because you know as well as I do, Bronwyn, like it'll be a short notice, maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months. And it's basically like, okay, well, all those things you did for business intelligence, it's all illegal. You can't do it anymore. And the companies that are going to win out of that are the ones that started doing things 2 years ago and have started to build that intelligence. Things I've seen in the past, which when we get to that piece of work, we'll really dig into, is proprietarily collecting all of this activity on the marketing site and putting it into Salesforce or putting it into another data warehouse so that it's ours. We're complying with the law. We're not using a third party. We can't look back and get data before we put things in place. So I'm of the opinion, I'm happy in that kind of messy ambiguity of like, well, we don't know exactly what we're going to do, but at least we've got some data coming in. So maybe 50% of this is useful, but that's 50% more than we have if we tried to get it perfect in the future. But yeah, really, really excited about this personalization piece. In previous experiences, I've seen it have a massive, massive impact. The two main things that I have on my mind that are gaps for us is accepting only USD, primarily with Visa. In other countries, they can't use Visa or they don't have that security code. So giving different payment options is a big gap for us. In previous experience, I've seen huge lift from that. And then after that, personalization, those two are just, again, open nets.
Michael, it may be worth just Bronwyn, quickly touching on the cookie bot work. That's kind of, it's less around personalization, but just the basics. Be good for folks to know.
Yeah, that was huge. We transitioned. This is probably the most nervous I've ever been at GitLab. We transitioned from CookieBot to OneTrust, so 2 different cookie consent tools. And we did it, I think it was 3 days before the day we went public. So the level of risk, probably up there. Like, I don't think I'll ever forget this in my career. The level of risk was like 1,000 because worst case scenario, something goes wrong. We're leading up to IPO. We're already seeing a lot of increase in traffic come to the site. It wouldn't have been good. Wouldn't have been good for me. Would not have been good for me or the company. But we had faith. We knew what we were doing. Laura Duggan on my team is leading that work. Just totally had it buttoned down, and we basically flipped the switch and everything worked great. Definitely hid that anxiety, but had the confidence and things in place to revert quickly. But now that we've gone to OneTrust, it's a much more modern tool. We're much more compliant with marketing ops and legal. We're re-reviewing the sheer amount of cookies we have on the page. We're finding massive amounts of unused cookies that were just added at some point previously because someone needed a slide share on a handbook page or something like that, and we're getting much more intelligent on what has to be there and what doesn't. So we're making really great progress on that front, as well as with Google Tag Manager. We just last quarter went through, because we're using Google Tag Manager to load Google Analytics in the free trial flow. So it gave us an opportunity to just look at the configuration in there, because no one was really owning that. And again, we probably cut that down by at least half of there were just unused things happening. So some that's the under the hood kind of stuff, which I kind of, to be honest, I love. It's like cleaning your room. It just feels better, but it's not hyper exciting. So we have 4 minutes. It's been a really great conversation. Happy to end a little 4 minutes early. I don't see any questions coming in to the group conversation. So we're really excited about this change coming up. Reorganizing the pages is going to be a huge amount of effort. And since we only do really, really big things on our team, we're going to add on the brand refresh on top of it. So it's going to be intense. We're going to be really busy this quarter. So if it takes us a little while to respond, that's the reason. It's not because we don't prioritize your work. We just really have to have a laser focus because we want to get this done. And we really require a lot of cross-functional support, especially from content teams, the brand team. We're going to need a lot of assets. So in advance, thank you. And sorry for hitting you up. Probably it's like a sidewinder out of the blue when we need something, but we really appreciate the collaboration. Thanks, everyone.